The night that changed everything started with a call I almost let die on the screen. It was a Thursday, 9:47 p.m., and my little shop was humming the way it always did when I stayed late. One bad light overhead, the smell of old oil and hot metal, a radio in the corner playing soft like it was tired too. I had both arms deep in the engine of a '98 Chevy Silverado, trying to coax life out of something that didn't want to cooperate. My phone rang, a number I didn't know. I looked at it and my first thought was Emma. She was 7 then, asleep at my sister's house because I'd promised I'd pick her up early the next morning. My second thought was, not tonight. Not another problem. Not another person needing something from me. I almost let it go, but something in me, that old habit of showing up, made me wipe my hands on the rag at my belt and answer. "Daniel Harper," I said, and I could hear the heaviness in my own voice. "Mr. Harper?" a man said. Careful, clipped, like he was holding himself together. "This is Marcus Webb. I'm head of security for Victoria Hale." The name landed hard, even though I didn't know her the way people on television knew her. I knew her the way a working man knows a customer. She'd been in 3 days earlier. Black Mercedes, electrical fault, clean clothes, calm eyes, polite in a distant way. The kind of woman who had staff for everything and still looked like she carried weight no one could see. "Yes," I said slowly. "Is something wrong with the car?" There was a pause, then a quiet breath on the line. "It's not the car," he said. "Ms. Hale hasn't responded since about 6. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. She dismissed the house staff early, which isn't normal. The cameras show she's on the property, but she won't answer the door or the intercom." I stood there with grease on my arms, listening, feeling the room get smaller. "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "You're the last person outside her circle she contacted directly," he said. "Your number is in her recent calls. She values privacy. Before I involve authorities, I wanted to try someone she might actually respond to." Every sensible part of me said no. I wasn't family. I wasn't a friend. I was a mechanic with a kid asleep across town and bills on my kitchen table and a life I'd rebuilt the hard way after my wife died. I'd learned to keep things simple, predictable, safe. But there was something in his voice, not drama, just real worry. "Where is she?" I asked. "Buckhead," he said. "I'll text the address and gate code." I looked around my shop, at the unfinished jobs, at the quiet, at the life I'd been trying so hard to control. And then I heard myself say, "All right, I'll come." 40 minutes later, my old truck rolled through a neighborhood where the street lights felt softer and the houses sat back like they didn't want to be seen. The Hale estate was behind iron gates that opened without a sound, glass and stone and clean lines, beautiful in a way that didn't feel warm. I parked and just sat there a moment, hands on the wheel, wondering what business I had stepping into a world like that. Before I could talk myself out of it, the front door opened. Victoria Hale stood in the doorway barefoot, hair loose, face swollen from crying. She didn't look powerful then. She looked like someone who had been holding herself up for years, and finally couldn't anymore. "Mr. Harper," she said, and her voice cracked on my name. And right there, on the edge of that perfect house, I felt the line of my life shift. Quietly, like a door closing behind you. I walked up the front steps slow, like you do when you don't know if you're welcome. Victoria stayed in the doorway, one hand on the frame, the other pressed to her stomach like she was trying to hold herself together. Up close, I could see the mascara smudged under her eyes. I could see her shoulders trembling even though she was trying to stand still. "I told Marcus not to call you," she said. "I'm sorry, this is embarrassing." "It's not," I said, though I wasn't sure she'd believe me. "He was worried." She gave a small laugh that didn't have any humor in it. "Everyone's always worried. It's just usually about money." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said the only honest thing I had. "Are you safe?" I asked. She blinked like the question surprised her. Then she nodded. "Yes, I'm safe." "Okay," I said softly. "Then I can go if that's what you want." Her eyes lifted to mine, red-rimmed, sharp, tired. "No," she said quickly, and then the word seemed to scare her. "I mean, I don't want to be alone right now. If that makes me pathetic, you can say so." "It doesn't," I said. The house behind her was bright and spotless, like a place made for photographs instead of living. I could smell something faint and expensive, candles maybe, but there was no other sign of a real night happening there. No dishes, no noise, no warmth. She stepped back to let me in. When the door closed behind me, the quiet hit harder. The air felt too clean, too controlled. I was suddenly aware of my boots on her polished floor, the smell of my shop still clinging to my clothes. "Come to the back," she said, and led me through wide rooms full of beautiful furniture that looked like nobody had ever sat down in it for comfort. We ended up on a covered porch that looked out over a pool and a dark garden. One small light glowed near the steps. The rest was just night. Victoria sank onto an outdoor sofa and pulled her knees up like a child who didn't know where to put the hurt. I sat on the far end, leaving space between us, the way you do when you're not sure what kind of need you've stepped into. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she said it like she was reading it off a paper she didn't want to touch. "My husband left today. I didn't move, I just waited. 5 hours ago," she went on. "He walked out with 2 suitcases and his lawyer's number on a card. He didn't even make it to our anniversary dinner. 16 years. Her voice went thin on the last word. "I'm sorry," I said. She turned her head toward me, and for the first time her eyes looked less like a businesswoman's and more like a woman's. "You don't even know me," she said. "For all you know, I earned it." "No one earns that," I said quietly. "Not like that." She looked out into the yard again. Her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were pale. "I built everything," she whispered. "I thought I was building security. A life. But tonight I realized I don't have anyone. Not one person I can call who would come sit with me and not want something." I swallowed, feeling the truth of it settle heavy. "I know that kind of quiet," I said before I could stop myself. She turned toward me again. "Do you?" "My wife died 2 years ago," I said. "Cancer." The words came out plain, like a fact I'd memorized. "And after?" People checked on me, but nobody knew what to do with grief. They wanted to fix it, explain it, rush it. That house, my apartment, it got so quiet at night I felt like I could hear my own thoughts breathing. Victoria's face softened just a little. "What's her name?" she asked. "Sarah," I said, and my throat tightened the way it still did sometimes, even after all that time. She nodded once, slow. "I'm sorry, Daniel." "No, Mr. Harper now, just my name." For a moment it felt like we were 2 regular people sitting in the dark, and not a billionaire and a mechanic from the other side of town. Then Victoria's voice dropped even lower. "I don't know what to do with this," she said. "With being left. With being nothing to someone I built everything with." I looked at her hands trembling in her lap. "You don't have to do anything tonight," I told her. "Just breathe. Just make it through the next hour." Her eyes filled again, and she pressed her fingers to her mouth like she didn't trust herself to speak. Outside, the night stayed still. But inside that porch, something had already started breaking open. Softly, quietly, the way real pain does. After she said that, the porch went quiet again. Not an awkward quiet. More like the kind you get when someone finally tells the truth and the air needs a minute to settle around it. Victoria stared out at the dark yard like she was afraid to look at me too long. Like my face might remind her that a stranger was sitting in her house, hearing things no one else had heard. Then she let out a slow breath. "I sent the staff home," she said. I couldn't let them see me like this. They've known me as a schedule, a voice in their ear, a list of instructions." I nodded. "Sometimes you need a room where you're allowed to fall apart." She glanced at me. "You say that like you've done it." "I've tried not to," I admitted. "But grief doesn't care what you try. It shows up when it wants." Her eyes dipped to my hands. I hadn't noticed I was still rubbing my thumb across the edge of my palm, a habit I picked up in hospitals while waiting for news. "What about your daughter?" she asked softly. "Emma." The way she said my little girl's name made my chest tighten. "You remembered," I said. "I noticed her photo," she replied. "When you showed me the diagnostic report. She has your eyes." I couldn't help the small smile that came out. "She has my stubbornness too," and her mom's laugh. Victoria swallowed at that, and I could see she was thinking about all the things she didn't have, or thought she didn't. "We were going to have kids," she said. "Richard and I. We said we'd wait until things settled down, but things never do they?" "No," I said, "they don't." She rubbed her arms like she was cold, though the porch had heaters and the air was mild. "I'm 43, she said. "I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I sit in rooms where people go quiet when I speak. And tonight, I realized I don't have one person who knows me when I'm not useful." The words landed hard because I understood something about that, even from the other end of life. "I used to think money would solve everything," I said. After Sarah got sick, I started looking at numbers like they were the difference between life and death. Sometimes they were. But it didn't matter how careful I was. It didn't change what happened. Victoria's eyes flicked to me. So what helped you? I thought about it. The honest answer wasn't pretty. Emma, I said. The fact that she needed breakfast, school clothes, someone to braid her hair when she couldn't do it right. She didn't let me disappear. Victoria's face pulled tight like she was holding back another wave. I disappear, she whispered. Even when I'm standing right in front of people. I looked at her then, really looked. Not at the wealth, not at the house. Just the woman curled up on a couch trying to stay upright. Do you want me to call Marcus back? I asked. Tell him you're okay? Her head snapped up. Panic flashed across her eyes. No, she said. Please, not yet. If I let anyone else in, I'll have to put the mask back on. All right, I said, no mask. She nodded once, like she was grateful and ashamed at the same time. Then she asked the question that changed the shape of the night. Would you make something to eat? She said quietly. I know that sounds ridiculous. I have a kitchen that looks like a magazine, and I can't remember the last time I used it. It didn't sound ridiculous to me. Food is one of the few normal things grief can't argue with. Yeah, I said, standing up, I can do that. Victoria watched me like she didn't quite believe a man like me belonged in her world. Even for an hour. But she stood too, and for the first time since I'd arrived, she moved like she had somewhere to go, like she was choosing to keep living through the next small thing, and sometimes that's how you survive a night. Her kitchen was the kind you see in houses that get photographed more than they get lived in, marble counters that looked untouched, appliances so shiny they almost reflected my tired face back at me. A fridge big enough for a family of 6, but when I opened it, it felt strangely empty, not empty of food, empty of use. There were containers lined up like soldiers, bottled water stacked neatly, vegetables wrapped and forgotten, a carton of eggs that still looked new. Victoria sat on a tall stool at the island, barefoot feet tucked on the rung, hands folded in her lap like she didn't know what to do with them. You can tell me to stop, I said, reaching for a pan. I don't want to make you feel like you're being taken care of without asking. She shook her head. No, please, just do it. So I did what I always did when life felt too big. I found something simple. Omelets, I said, like I was giving myself instructions as much as her. Eggs, cheese, whatever's in here that won't poison us. That earned a small sound from her, almost a laugh. I cracked eggs into a bowl, whisked them with a fork. The rhythm of it settled my nerves. It reminded me of early mornings with Emma, when she'd stand on a chair and watch like I was performing magic. Behind me, I heard Victoria's voice, quieter. Richard used to say cooking was a waste of time, she said. That time should be spent building something. I turned the stove on low and added butter to the pan. It melted slow, soft, and yellow. Cooking is building something, I said. It's just smaller. She didn't answer right away. When I glanced at her, her eyes were fixed on my hands like she was watching something precious. Single dad, she said, as if she already knew. Yeah, I replied. You learn quick. If you don't feed them, they don't let you forget. That made her smile, a real one this time, but it didn't last. I didn't eat today, she admitted. I had coffee, that's it. Well, I said gently, then we're fixing that. As the omelet cooked, the kitchen filled with the scent of warm food, and something about that smell seemed to reach her in a place words hadn't. When I set a plate in front of her, she stared down at it like it was a strange gift. It's just eggs, she whispered. Eat anyway, I said, sitting across from her with my own plate. She took one bite, then another, slower. Her shoulders dropped a fraction, like her body remembered how to unclench. This is ridiculous, she said, voice thick. Why does this taste like relief? Because you're hungry, I said. And because simple things feel bigger when everything else is falling apart. We ate in silence, but it wasn't lonely silence. It was the kind that felt safe. Afterward, I rinsed the plates. Victoria stood up and joined me, drying with a towel that still had the tag on it. You don't have to, I told her. I want to, she said. I don't want to feel like a ghost in my own house. We worked side by side, not touching, but close enough to feel the presence of another person. When we were done, she leaned her hip against the counter and looked at me like she was trying to decide something. Do you ever get tired of being the strong one? She asked. I didn't pretend. All the time, I said. Her eyes filled again, but she didn't crumble this time. She just nodded like she'd found someone who spoke her language. And in that bright, perfect kitchen with a dish towel in her hand, she looked a little more like a person than a headline. We went back to the porch after that, like the kitchen had done what it could do for the moment. Victoria brought a bottle with a heavy glass stopper and 2 short crystal glasses. She poured a little for each of us, careful, like the sound of the liquid mattered. "I don't even like whiskey," she said. "It just feels like what you do when everything hurts." I took a sip. It burned in the way truth burns when you stop avoiding it. She sat closer this time, not right beside me, but close enough that I didn't feel like we were on separate islands anymore. "Tell me about Emma," she said, and her voice had that hunger in it again. Not for gossip, for life. So I told her. I told her about dinosaur books spread across my kitchen floor. About how Emma asked big questions when I was too tired to answer. About how she still climbed into my bed during storms and pretended it was because she couldn't sleep, not because she was scared. Victoria listened like every small detail was something sacred. "She sounds loud," she said, a soft smile forming. "She is," I said. "She fills space." Victoria stared out at the dark yard. "I don't fill space. I take it up on paper, in numbers, but not in the way you mean." I didn't argue with her. I just let her talk. And slowly she did. Not the polished story she probably told reporters, not the version her boardrooms got. She told me about being a scholarship kid in a world of rich families, about learning early that if she was useful, she was tolerated. If she was brilliant, she was respected. If she was anything else, she was ignored. "I made myself into something no one could dismiss," she said, "and I thought that meant I'd be safe." She swallowed and looked down at her hands, but I didn't realize safety can feel like a cage. The porch light made her face look softer than it had when I first arrived. There was still pain there, but now it had space to breathe. "My husband told me our house feels like a museum," she said. "Beautiful, cold. He said he didn't know how to live in it anymore." I didn't say what I was thinking, that from where I sat, this whole place did feel like a show home. It wasn't my job to agree with the man who walked out on her. Victoria answered the thought anyway, like she could hear it. "He wasn't wrong," she whispered. "That's the part that makes me sick." She turned her head and looked at me. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I'm going to ask you something and I need you to hear it without trying to fix it." "All right," I said. "What do?" she asked. "When you wake up one day and realize you built your whole life around proving you deserve love, and now you don't know how to receive it?" That question hit me in a place I didn't expect, because I knew what it felt like to be needed, and I knew what it felt like to be respected. But receiving love, that was different. I stared at my glass for a moment, then set it down. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I think you start small. You let someone make you eggs. You let yourself be seen the way you are, not the way you perform." Her throat moved like she was swallowing tears. "I don't know how to be seen," she whispered. "You're doing it right now," I said. She leaned back against the cushion, eyes closed for a second like she was exhausted from simply being honest. When she opened them again, she looked straight at me. "I don't want to be alone tonight," she said, and her voice didn't tremble this time. The air changed, not loud, not dramatic, just different, and I felt it in my chest like a warning bell because I knew what she meant. I also knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to stand up, thank her for trusting me, and leave before the night turned into something neither of us could carry in daylight. But my body didn't move, because underneath everything, I recognized something in her that matched something in me, that deep, aching loneliness that makes a person reckless for 1 hour of warmth. I sat there with her words hanging between us, heavy and plain. I could have lied. I could have pretended I didn't understand. I could have played the good man who never wavers. But the truth was I understood too well. "Victoria," I said, keeping my voice low, "you're hurting. Tonight isn't the night to make choices you'll regret." She let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but it sounded tired. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't turn into a lecture. Please. I've had people manage me all day, every day, my whole life." "I'm not trying to manage you," I told her. "I'm trying to be careful." She looked at me then, really looked like she was measuring whether I was safe. "I'm not asking for promises," she said. "I'm not asking you to become my anything. I'm asking you to stay in the room with me while I remember I'm still alive." The porch was warm, but I felt cold anyway. I thought of Emma, small in her pajamas, the way she'd curl into my side when she watched a movie. I thought of Sarah, how my wedding ring had felt on my finger back when life was simple and whole. I thought of the kind of man I wanted my daughter to believe her father was. And still I didn't stand up, because there was another truth. The one we don't like to say out loud. I was lonely too. Not just miss my wife, lonely. The kind of lonely that sits in your bones after you've been strong too long. The kind that makes you feel like you're made of duty and nothing else. Victoria scooted a little closer, slow enough that I could have pulled away. Her hand hovered near mine, not touching yet. "If you leave," she said, "I won't blame you. I'll understand. But if you stay, I need to know you're choosing it. Not pity, not obligation." I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. "I'm choosing to be here," I said. Her fingers finally rested over my hand. Warm, trembling, real. For a moment, that simple touch felt like the loudest thing in the world. And then she asked the question that stopped me cold. "If you stay tonight," she said softly, "will you hate me tomorrow?" I stared at her hand on mine like it was the answer to something I hadn't known how to ask. I wanted to say no right away. I wanted to give her certainty, but I couldn't offer what I didn't have. So I told her the truth. "I don't know what tomorrow feels like," I said. "I just know right now. I don't want you to feel like you don't matter." Victoria's eyes filled again, but she didn't look ashamed this time. She looked relieved, like honesty was the only thing that could hold her up. "That," she whispered, "is the most human thing anyone has said to me in years." We didn't rush. There was no smooth romance to it, no movie feeling. It was two tired people standing too close in the quiet, trying to decide whether comfort was allowed. Morning came soft, not bright. The kind of dawn that slips in around the curtains and makes everything look gentler than it is. I woke before she did, the way I always did after Emma was born. My body had learned to listen for small sounds, to stay half ready for life to need me. Victoria was asleep beside me, turned slightly toward the window. In sleep, her face didn't look hard or controlled. She looked younger, tired, human. For a moment, I just lay there and watched her breathe. Not in a romantic way, but in a quiet, respectful way. Like I was taking in proof that she'd made it through the night. Then the weight of it all settled back onto my chest. Emma would be waking soon. My sister would be pouring cereal and checking the clock. My phone would start ringing. My shop would still be waiting, cars still broken, money still tight, life still asking me to keep moving. I sat up slowly and reached for my jeans. I dressed quietly, boots in my hand so I wouldn't thump around on her floor. When I turned, Victoria was awake, eyes open, watching me. "You're leaving," she said, not angry, just plain. "Emma," I answered. "I need to pick her up." She nodded and pulled the sheet up around her shoulders. In the daylight, the room felt too large for what had happened in it. The walls were clean, the bed was too big. Everything was expensive and somehow still lonely. "We don't have to talk it to death," I said gently. "Last night happened. It meant something. And now it's morning." Victoria's mouth trembled, then steadied. "Will you think badly of me?" "No," I said right away, "never." She studied my face like she was searching for any hint of judgment, and when she didn't find it, her shoulders dropped a little. "You didn't make me feel cheap," she whispered. "That's what I was afraid of." I stepped closer and knelt beside the bed so we were level. "This wasn't a transaction," I said. "It was two people trying to stay afloat." Victoria reached up and touched my cheek, the way someone says goodbye without wanting to. "Take care of Emma," she said. "Raise her to be brave." "I will," I promised. And then, because I couldn't leave without saying something back, I added, "Take care of yourself. Build something that feels like a home, not just a life that looks good." She nodded, eyes wet again. "I'll try." I walked out through her quiet house, past rooms that felt like they'd never held laughter, and stepped into the morning. My truck started on the first turn of the key like it always did, faithful in a way people sometimes weren't. The drive back felt strange. Same roads, same traffic lights. Smee world. But I carried something I hadn't carried the day before. Not romance, not a new plan. Just the memory of being seen in the dark. At my sister's place, Emma launched herself into my arms like she always did. "Daddy," she said, all warmth and cereal breath. I held her a second longer than usual and breathed her in. Shampoo, sleep, life. On the way home, she talked about princess movies and popcorn for dinner, and I answered at the right spots, but my mind kept drifting back to that porch. Later that afternoon, when Emma was settled with her crayons at the kitchen table, my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't have saved. My lawyer will be in touch about the car invoice. Thank you for everything, V. I stared at it a long time, then deleted it. Not because it didn't matter, because it did. Some things don't belong in the middle of your day. They belong in the quiet place inside you where you keep the moments that changed you. And that night became one of those. Not a love story, not a scandal. Just two lonely people sitting on a porch in the dark, trying to remember what it felt like to be human. If this story sat with you for a while, stay near us. There's always another quiet moment waiting here at Stories from the Heart.